6 years since we first saw an iteration of this car, the Aston Martin Valhalla, but now I'm finally driving the prototype. But a lot has changed since this was called the AMRB003. This is not the same car we saw in a Bond film.
Gone is the 3-litre turbocharged V6 of that car. Instead, it now has over 1,000 brake horsepower from a twin-turbo V8 and 3 electric motors. So, as well as going for a drive in the prototype, we're going to talk about the engineering.
We didn't want to have a great big gaping hole in the side of the car halfway down.
Have a chat to the designer,
kept in a fridge,
and then see if we can upset the director of communications with some spec choices.
Kev is never going to invite me back to do anything, anything with his team ever again.
This is everything we know so far about the Aston Martin Valhalla. If this film leaves you feeling prepared for Ragnarok and makes you think about swapping your Austin Healey for an Aston Martin, then why not head over to HagertyMarketplace.com. You can auction for free and keep 100% of the sale price. To find out more, just click on the hyperlink in the super description down below.
Rolling out of the pits at the Stowe complex at Silverstone. It's not the longest circuit, but it's quite good for what we've got today in terms of just getting used to this car. So, son of Valkyrie, does it live up to that? Well, the first thing before we start going quickly is that just the vibe, I suppose, the view out in here, the seating position, this steering wheel, they're one of the sort of the aspects that lift this above other near supercars, perhaps. So this framing of the window is a proper sort of slightly larger but still that very much sort of prototype view out. The fact that my hip point, the H point as they call it, is so low, my heels are pretty high, so you have that, again, proper sort of prototype feel to the seating position. And then this steering wheel, which is not quite as radical as the sort of the bow ties that you get in pure race cars, but nonetheless has some of that. And although it's got quite a sort of long bit here, it's nicely sort of not sharp exactly, but there's a hardness to the steering wheel, which means you feel like you've got a really good sense of connection. So yeah, straight away it feels special.
Despite the semi-race car vibe inside the Valhalla, it's not cramped, and it's easy to get in and out of thanks to the huge dihedral doors. The steering is light and undemanding at low speed before quickly weighting up to a nice amount of resistance. Visibility is okay too, and there doesn't seem to be anything awkward about it. The only aspect of the cabin I'm not so keen on at first glance are the tablet-like screens because they feel a little added rather than integrated. There are at least the usual lovely Aston physical buttons and switches to go with them though.
The car that you've got today is, well, all the hard points, all the engineering underneath it is exactly as it will be in the final production cars. It's the software that's probably at about 80-85%, so some of the gearbox software and things like that, perhaps not quite there, but it's pretty representative. The other thing to bear in mind today is that we are on the less aggressive tyre, so the Pilot Sport 5S tyre as opposed to a Cup 2. So again, it's more about sort of feel, trying to understand what it might be like sort of on the road as well as on a sort of a shorter track like this.
Even if it's not in its final calibration, one of the biggest changes over other current Astons, like the Vanquish, is the gearbox. It's an 8-speed dual clutch as opposed to an auto, and even from the first few changes, it adds a greater sense of immediacy to the whole car.
Right, put it into Sport Plus because that's actually the one where you get the most amount of performance. You get the full 1,064 brake horsepower, 811 pounds-feet of torque, 0 to 60, 2.5 seconds, top speed 217 miles an hour. There's a really nice sense of feel through this from the front and the rear. The brakes, it's brake-by-wire, fairly obviously, because of all the stuff it's trying to cope with, but again, there's a nice sense of faithfulness to it. It's smooth. The ride over the curbs, pretty good. And straight away you feel there's actually just a little bit of roll which gives you confidence in the car. It's a car that starts talking to you straight away, so you feel like you want to build up speed with it pretty quickly, actually.
A lot of the simulation work for the Valhalla has actually been done by the engineering arm of the Aston Martin Formula 1 team at Silverstone, known as AMPT, or Aston Martin Performance Technologies. They also developed all the carbon fibre used for the central tub and the bodywork, and they help with the aerodynamics. And someone very qualified to tell us about that subject is Andrew Kay, the chief engineer on Valhalla.
In terms of the aerodynamics, obviously many moons ago when AMRB 003 or whatever came out, they had the movable surfaces on that, which was a long time ago. It's come a long way from that. What is the sort of the aero philosophy in this? Because it's, again, different to Valkyrie, but inspired by it to some extent.
It is. It's a progression, I think, from what we learnt on Valkyrie. So the system is a front and rear active aero, active at both ends. They're completely independent systems, but obviously they're controlled together to maintain stability in the car. And it really is a very active system, particularly in track mode, where the rear wing comes up to the position you see it here. The front aero system is a single plane across the front of the car, sorry, a single piece across the front of the car. 2 diffusers in front of the front wheels, which we can lift up and down to turn them on and off effectively. And joining them is a piece which acts as a gurney, which turns on and off the rest of the underfloor treatment. So for a single piece that looks actually quite a lot like an F1 front wing, it's a shame we can't see it, but it works very cleverly because it's the diffusers on the outboard and the gurney in the middle which turns off the rest of the floor. So it's very, very powerful as it goes through its range of movement. It's making a huge difference at the front of the car. At the back of the car, once the wing is in the raised position, it comes up 255 millimeters into its full track.
That's its race
that's
mode.
full
So
race
I know
mode
today
position.
we've had it's in that the whole time for Sport Plus and Race because it's prototype, but that's race mode.
Race mode will
only.
be the 255, yeah. And in that position, it can then go from a DRS position, the drag reduction position, to the full air brake, and it can do that change within less than half a second. So it's very, very fast reacting. And when it's doing it, the front is working as well to maintain balance on the car. It's speed reactive as well. So from 240 kph, we actually have to start bleeding the downforce off. So you achieve 600 kilos of downforce, actually a little bit over 600 kilos. At 240 kph, we then start to bleed off the downforce, and that means that at very high speeds the car feels really, really consistent, which is what you want. At very high speed, you want it to always feel the same. So quite an interesting aero.
We're going to need a bigger circuit to really judge all the aero's capabilities, but you can certainly see it working. Also more visible than usual is the front suspension, because while there's a conventional 5-link setup at the rear, the front springs and Bilstein DTX dampers are pushrod actuated and left exposed in the nose. The V8 meanwhile might be hidden from view, but it certainly makes its presence felt.
And the engine, we all know it sort of has its origins over in Fatterback, but how different is it to the AMG GT Black Series flat plane crank?
Yeah,
engine?
really quite significantly. The team have done a lot of work on it. So really all of the air path is new. So new intakes, new turbos, much bigger turbos to give us the increased power that we wanted from the car, and all of the outlet, so new manifolds. And then obviously all the after treatment and the main exhaust is unique for the car. It's a hot V, so we've had some thermal management challenges with the car that the hot V brings. And the fact that the turbo is so much bigger could have given us lag problems, but of course we're able to use the hybrid system to do torque fill, and so you don't feel that, you just feel instant response.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of, because presumably actually sort of cooling the car is that much more difficult as well, because it's mid-engine as opposed to its natural home or original home was in the front of the car, which is much easier in terms of airflow.
It is a challenge, and particularly because being an Aston Martin, it's important that the car's really beautiful. We didn't want to have a great big gaping hole in the side of the car halfway down, which has given us some quite unusual challenges on the car. So all of the engine cooling is done at the front of the car. So all of that great big aperture across the front of the car.
A huge fan in there, kind of
really big fan. So we've got 3 high temperature radiators across, keeping the engine cool. Also, some of the battery cooling is done at the front of the car as well. Then down the sides of the car, low down, we've got the oil coolers for the gearbox on one side and the engine on the other. And then the snorkel's got really 3 tasks. So the snorkel is feeding charge air coolers, which are mounted on top of the engine, either side of the over each bank. It's feeding the engine air intakes to the turbos, and it's also feeding a cooling duct that keeps the turbo hot V cool, so the air flows all the way through the exhaust system from the snorkel. So one intake,
Very busy.
set very low in the roof. Actually, there's a channel in the roof to get that low roof line that we wanted from the car, but 3 functions, 3 things it's feeding. It was very complicated to get that right.
The V8 on its own delivers 817 brake horsepower, up from 720 in the AMG GT Black Series. But with its flat-plane crank, it's never been the most appealing orally, and it's the same here.
It's not actually as wildly loud as Advantage, I would say.
However, it's not just the V8 in this powertrain. Perhaps just as important for the handling are the 2 torque-vectoring E-motors, delivering a hot hatch-worthy 248 bhp to the front wheels.
So what happens if we turn some of the aids off? How does it feel? Because this is the first all-wheel drive Aston Martin sports car. Obviously we've had an all-wheel drive Aston Martin before in terms of the DBX, but this is a bit different. Really gives you confidence. Then come into this corner here, tip it in, you feel it instantly sort of drag itself in. And this is the crazy thing. We're living in a world where 1,064 brake horsepower, a car that, you know, isn't that light at, what, 1655 kilos dry, and yet that feels pretty easy. And it's all to do with the fact that it can torque vector through this front E-axle. You feel sometimes it's pulling you out of the corners, other times it just feels playful.
The Valhalla has a big contact patch with its optional magnesium rims wrapped in 285/20 rubber on the front and 335/21 at the rear, so it can clearly generate a lot of grip. And yet, it also has this almost MX-5-like ease of slip and playful on-limit handling. It seems counterintuitive, but I always remember the 458 Speciale had it too.
Tip it in here, second gear. It's like a WRC car with active diffs. So as long as you get it into your head that really being on the throttle is not a scary thing, it's a helpful thing, then you're fine. What a world we live in. It's mad.
It says a lot that even in a brief drive the Valhalla was so intuitive. But all too soon my time with the prototype was up. So I left the camouflage behind and went in search of Miles Nürnberger to have a chat about how the design of this car has and hasn't changed in the last 6 years.
It's Miles. This Valhalla has gone through a lot of stages over the years. We've talked about it a few times,
yeah.
But this is it. This is fine.
This is it. So yeah, I think from the original concept, which was 2019, I think the car's evolved a lot, but fundamentally, the Son of Valkyrie positioning that we started with is still there, and the design themes are still there. Actually, technically, it's evolved quite considerably, but from a design theme perspective, it's really quite true to the 2019 concept.
And it's bridging the sort of supercar, hypercar world, but has ended up potentially, I'd say, more hypercar than supercar.
Yeah, we sort of sometimes internally we're like, it's a supercar with hypercar traits. There's things like particularly when you see it move on the road, suddenly you go hypercar. You see the Son of Valkyrie.
Now, I'm going to go and spec one of these, or look at various specs and
try
and make mine up. Have you got any tips with your designs? Are there any sort of things to think about with this in terms of speccing it?
Yeah, I think what we found so far, and it's always a bit of a void to discovery with every new car, but this car takes a very, very wide band of character. So like you see today, it's quite sporty. I mean, the mid-engine layout gives it a race car feel anyway. So it will take graphics very easily and you can go super bold with the colour. In a way, I think with, if you were speccing a DB12, you'd be like, too much.
Yeah.
And on this, suddenly it takes it. On the other side though, you see this moment where the customer flips and they've sort of got an idea in their head and then they just see one element and they'll suddenly go to a super stealthy spec or a super sophisticated set, like a dark grey and like fine gold detailing. Little things like the badge on the front. So you can have the traditional wings badge, but we also have a lightweight titanium badge, and then we also have the ultra fine.
Is that the one that goes under the
Yeah,
lacquer?
that actually goes under the lacquer, so it's sort of kept in a fridge before it goes on. They paint the car out the fridge, sticker on, perfectly
Take it out
aligned.
next to the milk coming from
Yeah,
the
so you've got that image, yeah. And then lacquer it. So we offer that on the car as well. So we go to sort of that level.
There were going to be just 500 original Valhallas, but now Aston is hoping to sell 999, starting at £850,000 or about $1.1 million a pop, which is obviously much more than a Lamborghini Revuelto, but also significantly less than a McLaren W1 or Ferrari F80. Of course, that price is before Tom Barker has shown you all the options.
So, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
And our impressive configuration screen.
That's huge. How big is that?
7.5 metres wide, 2.8 metres tall, and over 150 individual panels.
Wow.
The choice is obviously vast. There are different leathers, although tweed is apparently very popular at the moment. There's a bevy of brake caliper colours, a tray of tints for carbon fibre, and some anodised parts too. Then there are the paint colours, including 4 Q Ultra colours, Chroma Flare Andromeda Red, Verdant Jade, Phoenix Black and Spectral Silver. But I thought we should start with something simpler.
What would be the absolute base spec
Yeah.
Valhalla?
So, base spec.
If you forgot to spec your Valhalla, what would it
So, absolute no option ticked. So, we'd start with a jet black paint or onyx.
So no cost option.
No cost option, jet black. There we go. Solid and metallic paint. So, then the exterior packages, we'd put those as gloss black as well. So, I must say the design team have done an amazing job because immediately, as a
That
standard
is-
exterior,
Wow. Silver wheels?
Silver wheels.
Oh, look at that. Done. I mean,
you like that one
that
already?
is so good.
From there, we tried an entire parking lot's worth of specs on different backgrounds, from Vegas to the French Riviera to a canyon pass, New York, and just a plain studio, with looks ranging from traditional silver birch to Marvel-inspired Deadpool and Wolverine. But how far can you push the Valhalla?
Yep, I know exactly the one. Jay is shivering over in the corner at the thought of Storm Purple.
Do you know what? I'm not sure. I don't mind that as much. It's Kev that really hates it.
There you go.
And then I think we've got to put a livery on that. What colour does Kev really hate?
Probably orange.
Orange. I was going to say some orange with that would be really.
Kev is never going to invite me back to do anything with his team ever again.
That it doesn't actually look totally hideous is testament to the chameleon-like nature of the Valhalla's design. Anyway, however you spec your Valhalla, for a real or fantasy garage, it's clear this car is a big step for Aston Martin.
I know this is only the prototype, but this feels like more of a change for Aston Martin than I think I'd expected, really. It's all-wheel drive. It feels so sophisticated. In some ways, it's more impressive than the Valkyrie, because whilst that was impressive because it's a race car that's been made to work on the road, can be homologated for the road, this, in terms of its technology and everything else, it feels so different to something like a Vanquish or a Vantage. It's a real shift for Aston Martin. I can't wait to drive it on the road.